Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 780, Jeremy Sinclair's here to join Garry and I, and we're going to be talking about lots of things Windows 10. We're talking about ARM on Windows 10. Jeremy's a big fan of Windows 10, and Photoshop's arrived, so we're going to be talking about that. We're talking about what we're expecting for Windows 10 next year, Windows 10X, and where it could go right, where it could go wrong. We'll talk about some Windows Insider news, big long list of fixes in this week's updates, and lots more as well. So let's get straight to Jeremy and Garry. Garry, good evening.
Good evening.
And Jeremy Sinclair, welcome back to the show.
Hey, how you doing, everyone?
Okay, we've got a trio of MVPs on tonight.
What's a grouping of MVPs called? An insider of MVPs.
What did someone describe as trying to herd cats? So something to do with cats.
Ninja cats, of course.
Yeah, ninja cats, of course. Yeah. So, Jeremy, it's great to get you back on. You got us on a few weeks ago, and I thought it would be a good time to get you back on the show again. And of course, it's Thanksgiving this week as well for you over in the US. So, no new builds, but yeah. So, it's your holiday week, isn't it?
Yeah, this is I think tomorrow is my last day for the week, and I have Thursday and Friday off.
Excellent.
Well, we just carry on working as normal.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm perusing Black Friday deals, of course.
Yeah.
It's just not like I'm actually going to be peaceful and relaxing. I'll be doing something.
Of course.
Yeah.
When
it's
the
always
real
a time
work...
to get some of your projects.
Absolutely. See, now you're getting it.
Yeah, when the day job finishes, that the other jobs start.
That's how it always is.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you could join us tonight. We've got plenty of things we can talk about. We did get a new insider build last week. We can talk about that. We've got some other things. We've got some of the Duo stuff. I've got a few updates on my Christmas lights, which I usually do around this time of year. We got updates to 20H2. But the first story I want to start with, and one of the reasons why Jeremy wanted you on the show, is we talked about ARM and Surface Pro X last time you were on the show, and since then we've had some of the Adobe products. I think it's Photoshop, isn't it, now available for ARM?
Yeah, that one was a surprise.
What does that mean for Surface Pro X users then?
Well, that means that they're able to use Photoshop natively on their devices. And honestly, the performance is not bad at all. It really shocked me when I saw the news. I saw their help article, and I went and downloaded it. I did get confused with the installer because there's a beta button at the top, but that's not the right button. You have to go to the left side, download it that way. But you see a lot of news, and you're not really used to these companies actually putting out ARM64 builds, because if we looked at it last year when the Pro X was debuted, Adobe promised that they would have I forget, one of their graphics apps, that they would have a native version of it, and that wasn't even the thing that was debuted. It was Photoshop. So that came out of left field for me. So I immediately had to make sure I could test it and see what's really going on with it. And sure enough, it's everything that's bundled with it is running ARM64. So it makes me kind of really happy, but I can't really help but to think that this only was presented to us because of something else.
And what's the something else?
The Apple M1, the Apple Silicon, which I'm not mad at that. I am not mad at that at all. But I mean, there's a lot around it, but I think the perfect time to for the companies to start putting out these applications, because really they have no excuse now that since Apple's in the game, they really have no excuse for at least starting that conversation You say, okay, we have this, we have Apple, we already doing our apps for Apple Silicon. Maybe it's time to start throwing out some Windows on ARM applications. Because I mean, it was here first. I mean, given it went through some phases, but it's here. So
is there a technical reason why, because they've done it for the Apple processor, that it benefits the for Windows, or do you think it's just because, like you said, they're like, well, look, you're doing it for Apple, you've got to do it for Windows, and you've been promising to do it, so can you just get on with it? Or is there a link between them, you think?
I really can't say for sure. I just know the time. It feels like the timing was just kind of It's like, hey, this comes out like a day later.
Yeah. You do wonder if Adobe are using native ARM code under the skin, so maybe them at a very low level for a lot of their stuff, because obviously performance-wise you'd want to be down there, which would actually make it a lot easier to port than if you were trying to write something for the Mac and then write something for the Windows using the higher level abstractions. So it kind of makes some sense that they may be doing that, and I certainly I know that in the past Adobe have been very able to port to quite platforms quite easily, because they have their own sort of native UX layer they build, so they just have to build a version of that for whichever UX they're actually on. And then the core stuff is all just one sort of core bit of code, which I think in this case, if they've ported that to ARM, if they've done that for the Mac, it does make it slightly easier to do it for Windows, which is good. I mean, it's all good. I just hope they bring up some of their other products as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Windows on ARM is in a really weird spot, because we started out with obviously we had the Windows phones, you had the Windows RT devices, which those pretty much existed for 8 and 8.1, and then goodbye. Mm-hmm. And then we transitioned into, hey, now we have the Windows on ARM with ARM64 and Windows 10. So I get there are a lot of companies and even developers who kind of felt betrayed about how everything kind of played out with the RT and kind of the rinse and rewrite and start over. But I think after this many years, if they're showing that dedication, hey, we want this to work, I think it's about time that we get past get past what happened, because obviously that was a different regime. Essentially, there are people involved that have since moved on, and there's decisions made above that everyone thought, okay, well, I guess this probably wasn't the right way to go about this. Here, let's try this. It's, I think for me personally, I'd be like, all right, we have a platform now where we can do this. We can do this right. There's still some things that need to be ported over in terms of on the .NET side, but all of the C++ desktop UI, UWP, that stuff runs on ARM64 and Windows. Mm-hmm. So there's really no excuse other than, I guess, it's still some of that fear of Microsoft essentially pulling the plug eventually. Yeah. I don't think they're going to do that for this, but that still at the same time relies on the buy-in, relies on people utilizing this, and I can tell that they put the chips down, because they got the SQ2 out, which is really a tiny refresh from the SQ1. I couldn't see them doing that in less than a year if they weren't in. So I see this at least being a time where we could let the bygones be bygones. Yes, we knew that once Apple Silicon was going to come out, companies were and everyone were going to like dive on that like it was the golden ticket. I knew that was going to happen. Now it's like, okay, you're optimizing all this code. Your developers, all the big popular open source libraries, they're putting in all that work to add in the ARM64 Mac support. Now's a good time to put a little branch in there for, okay, we already have a Windows x64 or Windows x86. Why not put a branch in for doing Windows ARM64? I personally, that's what I feel. It's because they're going to be making these optimized apps for Apple Silicon. It's happening. Now let's get everyone on that same page. There's no need to just leave Windows on ARM out of the picture. There's no need to, because it's essentially especially if you're running C++ apps. If it's C++ backend, get your CMake, etc. It supports it. Just put in do it. That's where I'm just like, do it.
Yeah.
Just make us happy.
So we just need to put you in touch with every developer, and then you can persuade them. just to get everyone, get 5 minutes with you, and then we'll get the ARM versions we need.
I mean, because it's these devices they're nice. They really are. And I think like I said, there's probably that little bit of hesitation from what happened with that, the RT transition and bye it went, etc. And another thing is a lot of the pricing. That's one thing where I think Microsoft and OEMs need to get a handle on if they're going to really sell these Windows on ARM devices, because you can't have a device that's like $1,500 or you pass the $1,000 and expect people to buy it. That's where Apple. That's the thing that kind of makes me jealous of Apple, because they control their entire process. They have the R&D, it's their processor. They had all the hardware, they had the OS, so they can control that price. They can have an ARM-based Mac Mini that's like $600, and someone's like, okay, yeah, this I can get down with. But then you have some of these other devices that are $800-900 with, that's one thing I think if everyone got that, focused on that, bringing that price down, and at least for developers, supplying a sort of kit. And I'm going to bring this up because Apple did this kind of right. Apple did that dev kit. If there were dev kits for Windows on ARM, or even some way that they can use a VM to develop against to see this, then I could see that actually happen. There being no excuse.
Yeah.
If you provide a way for an excuse to come in, that will be a valid excuse. That's
Gary,
what's going to happen.
That's an issue for you, I guess, when you're developing? Do you have to have a Windows ARM device to really test it? So you don't
really,
target it?
yeah. I mean, you can use emulators and stuff like that, but it's never as good as having the real thing. I mean, that's basically the bottom line.
You got a remote debug to it.
Yeah, remote debug and all that key stuff. I mean, you're quite right, Jeremy. I mean, the more frictionless you make it for developers, the more likely you're going to get adoption. I mean, at the moment there's way too much friction for developers to actually really buy into the ARM on Windows. And equally, you're also right, they've been burnt before. I mean, there's been a lot of effort, a lot of resources put into platforms which have disappeared. So I know there's a lot of, I talk to a lot of developers who basically say, well, we'll just stick to doing normal x86 desktop because we know the market's there and it's going to stay there. And why should we put in a huge amount of effort in for a very small footprint? Well, obviously it's chicken and egg, isn't it? With the footprint's going to stay so small if the development doesn't happen, which is why I think this Adobe thing is really important. I mean, they obviously, it does sound, from what I'm sort of reading between the lines, it does sound like they've just been able to port their main code base very easily. But that will drive adoption of the ARM platform, because there are people who are Photoshop junkies. The performance is really important for them, but also the battery life would be really key for them. So I mean, I certainly know a lot of photographers who want to edit on the go and take stuff with them, and it becomes a very attractive item. And once people start buying the platform, then it gets more attractive in developers. But equally, you are completely right about pricing. At the moment, it's so well out of what people expect of an ARM-based product. I mean, most people think of ARM-based products and they think phones and smaller tablets, and they're sort of £400 or £500 or $500 maximum, and plus over £1,000 is just ridiculously out of most people's budget. But as Richard would tell us, that all the Chromebooks are going that direction as well. So it's £1,500 for Chromebook.
Yeah, and this is actually why I like that Apple did step in. Because like I said, I knew as soon as Apple stepped in, everyone was going to hop on. Because it's guaranteed once they reveal something.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I'm really satisfied with my Surface Pro X. I mean, for what I use it for, it works for me just flawlessly. And I can play with like VS Code. I can even run Visual Studio and use GitHub code spaces. I can do a lot of stuff on it. And I think I see Apple with the M1 devices. I see them saying like, "Hey, I did this. It's time for y'all to step up."
Yeah, and the M1s,
this benchmarks are benchmarks are impressive.
I mean, especially the video editing stuff. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. I mean, like one of my fellow YouTubers was saying that his edit took him 45 minutes less on a normal 2-hour edit than he would previously had. So, I mean, that's like almost 100% increase in speed of again his productivity. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is some wild stuff.
Yeah. I suppose what we really need to see then is more variety or more availability of ARM-based devices, Windows. So not just the Pro X, which is a premium device, but maybe likes of Acer and Lenovo and HP, maybe throwing some cheaper models into the mix.
Well, there's a lot.
So something that's like enough, like even if they made different, like you said, cheaper devices, but even just different tiered devices where they're pack some power to it, mid-range. It's just something where everyone could have like that different selection, like you would see for the existing x64 laptops and etc. But I think at the same time, if that happens, the software has to be up to point.
Yeah.
Because we're back to the chicken and egg again.
You do, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of platform out there. I mean, there's an awful lot of tablets based on the ARM processor, which are, I mean, Chinese manufacturers are churning them out left, right, and centre for Android, and some of those are actually quite powerful and probably could run the ARMX stuff. So yeah, I mean, it certainly is possible that could happen. It's obviously down to licensing from Microsoft on this stuff, which is always probably the sticking point on this. But yeah, I would like. I mean, I certainly a tablet running it would be really nice to see. We need the old links people, Ian.
Yeah, links. My links. Well, actually, I think I've still got that somewhere. No, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Links 8. Yeah, Windows 8 tablet. What was it? £79?
Yeah, x86.
$100. Yeah. Yeah. It still works, by the way.
Wow. Sometimes I do wonder if what would have happened had we had an easy transition from the Surface RT to a Windows 10. So if they made a Windows 10 for the ARM v7 that was released to the customers through the OEMs, like a update, like, hey, here's a step ladder. Here's how you can see this work here. And then once Windows 10 got mature and they started selling the Windows on ARM devices, the ARM 64, then there could have been a smooth transition and no real lack of trust. I always really wish, it's like, what if? Because I think that was a lot of issues, because I know those tablets were super popular. I know just on XDA developers alone, those tablets were hot. Running the Windows RT, I still have like a few Lumia 2520s. Those things were so.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
My RT's over there somewhere. I showed it on the show a couple of weeks ago. Actually, it still works.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it was a kind of perfect. It had there was just so much. It was just beautiful. I could have done so much with it.
When I was at I think the first year I covered CES with the Surface. The year before that, I was using the MacBook Air. I left the charger in the hotel room. It was that good, the battery life on it, and I was doing the vlogs and stuff all day on it, and doing the keynotes and everything else. Charged it when I got back to the hotel at night. It was fantastic for that. Whereas the MacBook was like, you're hunting around like everybody else at CES.
Crawling around the floor. I remember that.
Yeah, we've sat outside of VM a few times on the floor, haven't we? Gary, commenting on keynotes and things. But yeah, we've mentioned it a few times on the show. It was almost there, and for my usage and for a lot of us, it was almost there. But I think Gary pointed out early on when the RT first came out that John Lewis, which is a big retail chain here in the UK, then they have a big electronics section, and they were getting a lot of people returning the Surface RT because they couldn't just install. I think iTunes was the example at the time.
iTunes was the key thing at the time. Yeah. So,
which case in point, back to Apple.
But I think generally the people just expected it to run all the applications. It was Windows, so when it didn't, it was faulty. It was returned.
And that's
so it was close.
Yes, that's one thing that will always, ring hard against the regular user. When they pick up a device, they expect it to run as they would run any of their other devices. And I think that's where Apple kind of hit it out of the ballpark with their Rosetta 2 and the performance around that. Because I honestly expected, like, I've seen what the Rosetta was like with the PowerPC. I expected it to just be complete, like, here. But surprisingly, it works.
Yeah,
that's what boggles my mind. I'm like, they did it right. Out of the box, they did it right.
But even looking back to the PowerPC one, compared to anybody else's transition from one chipset to another, that was still way ahead of anything Microsoft had ever done on a chipset transition. And this is just so much better. I mean, people are just able to port things without even really thinking about it. It's crazy.
Well, and you know why? You know why they're able to do that? And this is the frustrating thing. It's because with Windows, how many times have you heard the statement, I want to run this app that ran on like Windows XP?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
It's that compatibility. That's what always burns. Like Apple straight up said years ago, they're like, yeah, we're getting rid of x86. It's like, no, after this, like you will not run these, like recompile or
recompile or die. But the interesting thing is
they can do that.
They can do that. But if you actually look, I mean, sales figures wise, Windows is still way ahead of any of the Apple Mac products, and obviously iPhones and iPads are a slightly different matter. But that's because of the backwards compatibility. People will buy because they can still run the stuff. I always think it was really interesting what Apple did with the branding, because they came up with the iPad, which was a very distinct product from the MacBook range. The iPhone and iPad were not, very obviously not part of that family, the MacBook family. They were very different products. They were different operating systems. Whereas I think where Microsoft probably went wrong with the tablet OS was actually trying to brand it as Windows. If it actually branded it as something completely different, the Surface RT may have flooded off the set shelves, because it would have been a perfect device for that family PC or laptop or whatever, browsing, simple PC, simple OS, whatever you want to call it. But you got rid of that expectation that it would have run the other stuff, because it's a different OS. And nobody expected an iPhone to run Mac OS programs.
Yeah, that is something, because when you saw it, it's Windows RT. Yeah, it has that Windows branding.
Yeah,
you have that similar interface. So, with that assumption, oh, I'm just going to be able to do this. Oh, I can't do this. This is what I bought this device for. I can't use it no more.
and you think they'd have learned that lesson, because they had the same problem with Windows CE when that came out. That people expected it to run stuff it couldn't possibly run. So,
and they did drop that, didn't they? And they started calling it Pocket PC and Palm size PC and all that kind of thing. But Palm PC, then Palm size PC, then Pocket PC.
Then Pocket PC, yeah. With Pocket PC was a great name.
Oh yeah,
that was a really good name.
And is this a mistake though, that they could be looking to repeat with Windows 10X, because we're in a similar situation where there's potential that not having backwards compatibility in it, but it's still got the Windows branding.
10X, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little worried about 10X, mainly because I just remembered it existed when you referenced it. I really hear no news about it, and I know it's under development, and stupid COVID just ruined so much stuff, which I say that's horrible timing. But I wonder where it's really going to fit, or is it going to be something where we're going to see a mass influx of people going towards this platform? Who's it for? That's the key question. Who's it for, and will it be those people who it attracts, or will it be others trying to make it use it for what it's not meant to be used for, and come out disappointed? That's really one of kind of the big things that's on the back of my mind, because it's a big rewrite of a lot of things, and
that breaks away from that legacy stuff.
Yeah, and I wonder where it's like really going to fit in. Is what, because when I buy devices, I have to justify it. So I have barring Windows Phone, because you had the test thing with Windows phones because it could work on here but blow up everywhere else. But for my individual devices, they're all in a way where I have a specific use for each of them. So I have nothing that I will completely use 100% on any device. I split them up. Now, if I were to get a Windows 10X device, whenever those actually come about, I'm trying to wonder where that will fit in.
Yeah,
because I don't even know where Neo is even going to. Unfortunately, I was really excited for Neo, but I don't even know when it's going to be because I'm just going to blame all of this on COVID. That's I'm just going to go there with this because I think that we would have seen something great if it weren't for COVID.
Yeah, I think I would have probably had a Neo maybe by now to go with my Duo. And it was really a device that I really wanted more than anything of the other devices. But now they're talking about they change the focus back to single screen devices. So maybe we'll see some low cost devices running 10x for education market, that kind of thing. But it still goes back to that. Yeah, it still goes back to that compatibility that it's called Windows. But maybe we've moved on though because we don't have iTunes as an issue anymore. That kind of thing. So maybe it's not going to have the same compatibility.
Yeah, I mean that is true. Actually, there's a lot less legacy Windows apps that people actually rely on these days. There's a few, but most people have moved on from that. So it's
I don't know. If you think about it, there's on the ARM side. So .NET 5 came out. And .NET 5, it was going to come out with WinForm support for ARM64, but that's coming in like a servicing update.
Yeah.
Ultimately, WPF will be out like next year. And I did not realize how many people still created WPF apps.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them out there. I mean, I think
that's kind of the thing.
Yeah, from a business point of view, there's an awful lot of that. I was thinking more from consumer usage.
Oh yeah.
What apps do consumers actually use these days? Because most people have migrated to doing virtually everything on their phones anyway. So it's the Office stuff. Well, Office works quite happily on ARM, with some restrictions. And then what else? It used to be iTunes. Some of the Adobe stuff, yeah, people do use Photoshop and video editing. That seems to be one of the more common uses for computers these days. And then it's the main compatibility thing, and this is something which just hit Chrome hard recently, is printers. Can you get printers to work?
Printers.
Yeah,
They almost had that right. They almost had that right.
Yeah,
and they just, this is actually a good solution. Oh, time to go.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've noticed with printers. The only way I've ever been successful with getting any printer working is to set it up with the web services. So of an HP printer.
Yeah,
those are notorious for, if you don't have the correct driver at the right time in the right setup, it's just not going to work. Having the web services, I've been able, my phones pick it up, and I'm able to print my Pro X. I didn't have to install anything. It detected it. I right-clicked and said, "Hey, this is my printer," and it worked.
Yeah,
it's like you have to have that right formula, but it's still too difficult to get it set up, because I had to go and configure all kinds of stuff just to make that part work.
But that is definitely, from a consumer point of view, that's one of the things that people do look for. They want to print the stuff out they've got, and I know that there's been this hue on Chromebooks where they send out notifications that a lot of printers are going to be obsolete from the end of the year. They're not going to work, and sort of no alternatives being published out there. And you imagine if Microsoft did that with Windows, suddenly none of your printers are going to get suddenly work.
That's one thing that will always get me. There's so many other people getting away with stuff that if Microsoft even did like a half of it, it would just be complete outroar. It just like everyone just go crazy and condemn them to eternal banishment.
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft did make a rod from their own backward compatibility from day one. I mean, the fact that they've had that from Windows 3.0 onwards, that has been a blessing and a curse. I mean, it's a blessing, as I said, it does mean that their sales numbers are higher than any other computer system out there, but equally it's a curse, and that you're tied into that, and people expect it. And as you say, if they took all the printers away, there would be national news.
Oh, yeah, it'd be complete national news. Everyone would just suddenly say, announce they're dropping Windows like they actually could.
Or there'd be antitrust, whatever going on. It would be fireworks, but the other people seem to be able to do that. Just sort of like, oh no, we're not doing that anymore. We're not allowing you to print on Epson printers or whatever it was that they did. So
that's another thing. Leads me into something. How others are able to do this, and get the buy-in. And people actually will work with them and report issues. Most of the time, when it comes to Windows, like when a lot of the team asks for feedback on things, barely anyone really gives proper feedback. And so we just get, sometimes I'll see people just throwing anger out on the internet rather than, okay, let's have a coherent discussion. Here's what's going on. Here's what's happening to me with those clear reproduction steps, so that the developers and everyone on the teams responsible for said feature can work together and move towards the finite resolution. If nothing is thrown out there in the right way, then things aren't going to get fixed. Because a lot of people get that incorrect assumption that, oh, I reported this one thing, it should automatically be priority. If you're the only one reporting it, and there's no big details, where does it fit in the priority? Because if you're the only one hitting, and it could be something that you did.
Yeah, especially that Windows has is that there's a million different configurations of hardware and software, and whereas Chromebooks and Mac, it's very there's a very clear definition of what even what accessories people can use, whereas Microsoft have just, and like you said, you added to the mix the backwards compatibility as well. You're dealing with 20 years worth of hardware and software. It's a huge amount of thing to support.
Although you can do backwards compatibility on Chromebooks now, of course, because you can use Parallels to run Windows on there.
Yeah,
I actually found that when I saw Parallels for Chrome Enterprise. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's quite amazing, really.
And I think
it's going to be interesting to see next year what happens with Windows 10X. I mean, I was looking at the emulator images, and they are really old now. It's been a long time since we've had them, and I keep checking every now and again. I think one day I'm going to go on the emulator, and there's going to be a new image for us to test, but nothing there at the moment.
Yeah, I give them a year. If they haven't put another emulator image out in a year, then it's a dead product.
Yeah.
For me, when I tried to run the emulator, like you almost need a really decent machine to be able to run those emulators.
You do.
You need something with some amount of power to run those emulators, because it's not going to run like a generic emulator does, or VM and Hyper-V does. It's if it's not done, if you don't have that right minimum power, good luck even getting that thing to pass the Hyper-V screen.
I tried it on a Surface Pro 4 and I couldn't get it to work. It works on a Surface Laptop 2, but not on the Surface Pro 4.
Oh.
Yeah, it definitely eats resource.
Because even the emulator though, it's a dual screen emulator as well, and I guess that if they want people to, now they've reconfigured it and looking at single screen, then they need a single screen emulator so we can really try out what is going to be coming. So I'm hopeful we'll hear something in the new year. I doubt we'll hear anything this year on that, but we'll wait and see, because 10X is interesting. It's something new. It's a lighter weight operating system, and I really want to get testing with that. I'd love to see a device like the Surface Laptop Go running, Surface Go running 10x. That's the ideal form factor, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. That would actually be pretty nice. Like a pretty nice form factor, like you said. I just need more. I need to know more about it. Yeah, and I think that's what I'm missing, because I haven't heard much of anything. Which it's kind of like we've heard, you know, there were some setbacks, but I don't know like where it's going to fit in. And that's personally me. I have to go back and at least read up on 10x again. I just haven't seen any new so I don't know.
Yeah. Onto Windows. Back onto Windows 10. We did get an update for 20H2 this week, and it's got a big long list of fixes.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me look at that again.
Let me share my screen, and I'll. So here's the list of fixes. So it's KB 4586853, takes the build to 19042.662. I would imagine this will be out as the December. I don't know if they actually do patch Tuesdays in December, but normally we get this release and then it hits the normal ring in the next month. So maybe the first patch or the second Tuesday in December there'll be a patch Tuesday, and this will be the list of fixes. But I'll scroll down the list here, but it's a big long list of fixes.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of fixes on there for a patch on an update. I didn't realize there was that many issues, but there was some highlights I saw. They fixed some issues with that game with Xbox connecting to the console, and I did notice one thing there, that they've improved the video quality on Windows Mixed Reality. If you've got one of the older lower spec headsets, like I've got the Lenovo headset. Which is good to see, because they've there we go. They've been talking a lot about how they've improved Windows Mixed Reality on the new ones, like the Revo 2, and there's an update in there. So I don't know exactly what they've done, but anyway, that's in there, the fixes. But a big lot of fixes in there, and that's going to get. I would imagine that will be going out to general users in a couple of weeks' time.
Speaking of fixes, I have to hijack this and go back and talk about my Pro X again. So for a while, I've had issues with Windows Hello actually caring to like accurately detect me. It would find me like when I'm not looking at it.
Yeah.
And then when I'm right in front of his face, it's like, oh yeah, we find yeah, sorry, can't sign you in. I think ever since 20262, that build, I haven't had any issue whatsoever using Windows Hello. Like I can accurately just pick up my Pro X and I'm in. I don't know if it's a combination between that build and some firmware drivers that I've gotten, but I've actually seen it work better even before I got before the firmware drivers came in, firmware update. But I think that's impressive, and I don't know if they have any Hello fixes in that beta release, but from stuff I'm seeing on the dev, I am actually a lot of more excited with opening up my Pro X and using it without running it into any immediate issues.
Yeah.
So I can tell the team's doing work. The team is doing some big work.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff going on at the moment, I think.
There's a lot of under the hood stuff going on at the moment, I think, which is one of the frustrations.
I'm just reading through that fix list, and just there's some of the under the hood stuff there is quite interesting. And some of the comex stuff and things that really could affect a lot of things, and you just wouldn't know.
No, because we got a new dev channel build last week. So that was 202.62, and we're still on that FE release, aren't we? So we've none of the features that we've been testing. So all the emoji keyboard, new keyboards, and all that kind of thing is still missing, and all there is some fixes, and there's less fixes actually in this than there was in the one that went to release preview. So there's only a few issues on there that are fixing, but these under the hood stuff is probably where the time's going. But just for Windows Insiders, it's not that interesting because we like flash visual things that look good to see those, and yeah, there's not much on those at the moment. So yeah, pretty lightweight the testing at the moment for Insiders.
I think, aka I hope, that the build that will probably go out next week, since we're not going to have any builds this week, if that has an RS pre-release, you can almost guarantee that that's going to have the x64 emulation in it.
Oh yeah, that's right, for the ARM stuff. Yeah, because that's what they promised, didn't they?
Yeah, they said that, like, yeah, we're going to have something in November. I had a feeling there's, with some of the issues that we had with the preparation to go to have the x64 support, the PowerShell breaking for 2 builds, I think that might have set some things back. But I think they're on something. It's coming, because I've seen, just looking at all of the builds, there's a lot more like .NET x64 related stuff, like .NET Framework x64 stuff being thrown in. It's like that preparation's there. So I think I'm hoping maybe next build, if not, maybe build after. But I think it'll be something good as a preliminary test to really play with, having that run x64 apps on that Pro X, and I'm kind of excited about it. I know I'm not. For me, being dev channel only, I know what to expect. I don't get my hopes up like 3,000% and expect perfection. I go in knowing that something's going to be buggy, and I will likely run into it, because that's what somehow happens to me. But I'm excited to just start seeing how things are going to flow with that, because I see it as an intermediary. This will get people happy, saying, okay, I can finally run these x64 apps on these Windows and ARM devices. I can run this program that I couldn't before. But I also think that it opens a door for developers to say, okay, maybe I can start porting more over to ARM64, seeing how this is running on here. Yeah, let's get this ported over. That's at least my hope.
One could hope.
Yeah. So we want to go back to the pre-release channel or branch, so that we could get those into the dev channel.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So hopefully they can do that switch over while they've got a week off from builds. They can switch as branch over for us. But it'll all give us something new to test,
I think.
Yeah,
that's something with the Insider program. Is everyone in it, they're really ambitious. They want, like, they're bloodthirsty for those new features. So they want new all the time. And I try to remind them, like, yeah, this isn't like the beginning of Windows 10, where there was always some brand new feature just about every single build. If we keep relying on new features only while there's still bugs, you're just going to pile up the bug list and continue throwing stuff in there? Like I'm all for, hey, we've gotten this, these set of features. There's some bugs with it. There are some bugs that have existed for a few months, and I want to see those bugs fixed first before throwing 20, 30 new features in. And that's just me, because I'm all about that nice balance. I can deal with having less amount of new features and more bug fixes. But I can also deal with instability and be fine with that. But I know it. I know I go in there knowing. That's what, when we click that button to sign up and go into the Insider program, there was absolutely no guarantee the stuff is going to be stable. They even told you, this is preview. Yeah. Things will break. So expect things to break.
And they do.
But I think this is going to be good, though, because we're getting towards the end of the year, and 2021 is coming up. I'm looking forward to seeing, like I said earlier, what's 2021 going to bring. I feel like things could be better than 2020.
Better than 2020. I think that's going to be the motto, isn't it, for a lot of things next year? Well, whatever, it's better than 2020.
Well, it's weird though. For on a side note, for everything that's gone completely wrong and backwards in 2020, I feel like we've gotten a bigger chance to connect with a lot of people, more than I have in previous years, which is really interesting, because I love the conferences. I loved seeing people face to face, going to build, etc. But even from that digital standpoint, I've been able to connect with a lot of people. So I wonder how that's going to play in, because there has been that shift with working from home, the companies deciding to go remote and make a shift on their priorities. I'm wondering how that's going to play into what we see with 2021, because that's essentially like a new slate right there. So I wonder what we've learned with how to handle 2020.
Conferences are much more accessible when you can do them from home, because you don't have to, if you've not got the funds to fly to a conference and you can join via Teams, then it's much more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see how that really plays into the new technologies, like the new software, what's going to randomly appear for us in 2021 that's going to build off of what had to be adjusted for in 2020.
Yeah, we should see the results of that in the year with the changes to Windows that's potentially coming, and 10x and other stuff as well.
Hopefully exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited, so.
Yeah, no, that's why we like you coming on, Jeremy. We're just running short on time now, but how are you finding your duo? Still loving the duo?
Yeah, I am. Well, we got an update. Was that last week, or it might have been last week?
Yeah.
Update.
Yeah.
It's still going strong for me. I've run into random glitches, which I love. I have this weird thing. I actually love the glitches that the duo has. I'm not mad at them. I actually find them like funny, just the glitches that I have, where I'll be typing something and randomly like the icons from the home screen will overlap or something, and then I switch the screen and then everything works again. But I'd say it feels a lot more responsive for me. It's definitely more stable. So I haven't had any issues with rebooting, like with the phone randomly rebooting, like I've seen others have, which that is a little concerning, because I've heard from more than one person that they've run into that. And it's even more concerning that it hasn't happened to me, because normally those are the type of issues that I get.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm not finding that issue either.
It feels a lot. It feels better, and every update that they have done to launcher has just made it run more smooth for me. I don't have any of those weird bugs with locking and unlocking the phone, where sometimes I couldn't even unlock the phone without force rebooting it, and they've fixed a lot of stuff. I definitely give them that. This is still, Gen 1. I knew what to expect. I came out, hey, this is Gen 1 phone. I love bugs. I love troubleshooting and finding ways to say, hey, look, this exists. Let's get this fixed.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see
that sounds like a great t-shirt. That does. I love bugs.
It's like bugs frustrate me, but for some reason I can't help but to troubleshoot. It's what I do.
Well, I think that's a great way to finish the show this week. I love bugs. I think they've got the show title as well.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, just tell us where anyone listening can follow you and find your find you talking about ARM, Windows, and all sorts of other interesting stuff.
Well, you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Sinclairinator with a 0 and not an O. But I'm usually on there talking about the most random things, a lot of ARM related stuff, some Windows, some .NET. It's whatever comes to my mind, whatever I run into that day. But I try to keep it as exciting as possible.
Yeah, well, I like following you. We're always trying to make sure when those launcher updates come, who can post a screenshot first.
Yeah, you've been getting me these past few times.
Yeah, it's because there must be a time zone. Just must suit my time zone when they come out.
Yeah.
And Gary, where can we find you?
If you want to find even more random tweets, you can follow me on Twitter as well, at Garry with 2 R's, WMA.
And I'm at iStixon on Twitter. Jeremy, it was great to get you back on the show. We'll get you back on again soon as well. Really love getting you on the show, and maybe when we do get that ARM64 stuff, we can get you back on to talk about how that's working.
Oh yeah, definitely great to be on here, and yeah, you're definitely going to see my opinion once the x64 stuff comes. You're definitely going to hear it.
Excellent. Well, thanks to both of you, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks.